Hey everyone, welcome back to the Unqualified Film Bros. Got Max, Ben, and George talking about Fly Me to the Moon. We got ScarJo, Channing Tatum, Woody Harrelson, Ray Romano, space race aero romantic comedy based on a conspiracy theory. Let's dive on in. You guys like this one?
It was okay. I mean,
Yeah,
there wasn't really anything egregiously wrong with it. There was nothing that exceeded or really didn't
you
meet
know,
my
I
expectations.
I actually disagree. I think that the movie is because I feel like the first part is actually working really well. It's firing on all cylinders. Um, but it's really working well when it's just like a person coming in trying to sell, you know, the moon, engaging with like the a astronauts' lives and all that stuff. When it gets really derailed when, you have the whole like fake the moon thing. I don't know. It's just a stupid side plot. Um,
I
and then you
agree.
have her having to do it with all of like with because she has to have some like stupid backstory that requires like really this person that is so powerful that the president is going out his way to find has this backstory that's like haunting. I mean, it's just a ridiculous thing. You couldn't make a this is just ridiculous to me. And in the beginning, it's working really well.
Yeah,
When
the
it's just
first
about the actual like space race, about the astronauts, about the mission, about the sacrifice, about how hard it is.
the
The
first half of the
romance stuff
movie,
didn't work. Yeah, I thought it was egregious in that end part. And it also ends about three different times.
yeah,
Like there are
the
moments where
That's
it
true.
feels like it should end and it just keeps going and
It's way
tacks
too
on the
long.
rest.
It should not have been a 2 hour and 12 minute
212.
movie.
Oh,
It
it's
it
so
could have been a
good.
tight hour 40.
Maybe even
Yeah.
an hour and a half.
Yeah. I agree 100%, Ben. This movie was working. Nice little period romantic comedy.
Yeah.
Nothing too remarkable, but I was having
No,
a
but
good time.
it was enjoyable. Like it feels
Yeah.
like it flows really well. And then you start adding on these like random side plots and it just doesn't flow well anymore.
No, it got as soon as Woody Harrelson showed up in the hotel room, it got really clunky. And you
Yeah.
started trying to have too many different things happening at once,
Hmm.
where you had to be paying attention to, well, Scarlett Johansson and Woody Harrelson are trying to fake this, but you've also got Channing Tatum and Ray Romano trying to get it off the ground, literally. Uh, you've got everything in between with the engineers and the assistants and their romantic entanglement, if you want to call it that. You've
Yeah,
got
I thought
Jim
that was a
Rash
really
coming in at the
silly
end
thing.
to direct this production, and it's just like the movie is called, or no, the movie was sold, I think, to the public as Scarlett Johansson's character is brought in to fake the moon landing,
Yeah, that's how
and
all the
that's
advertising did.
that's what I went in expecting. And then by the time we're an hour and 20 minutes into the movie and that part of it hasn't happened yet, I forgot that that's why I was there, that that was going to happen in the movie. And
First of
when it
all,
did happen, I was like, really? It was going so well.
I feel like I didn't, I went in thinking the same thing and I was like kind of worried because I thought that was a stupid plot anyway.
It's,
And
basing a movie on that conspiracy theory is not the worst idea for a movie.
no, but it's like they have all
Framing
this,
it as a romantic comedy, maybe.
they get to shoot it at Kennedy Space Center. They have all these things like anybody that has a true fascination with space, the space race, would love, would die to do. Apollo 13 used that, the right stuff used that. It is a dream come true. Decent budget, you had access to all this stuff. So to see it like meander off into like some fake side plot is kind of disappointing to me. because I feel like it was working really well on the idea of like selling, going through and dealing with the problems, that occurred like with Apollo 1, engineering problems and things like that, and her having to manage the political atmosphere of that next to like Vietnam and stuff.
Yeah,
Instead,
trying to do
it
PR for
doesn't really
NASA in the
engage with
60s
that.
was not easy.
No. And I think it was working really well there. And I think the romance side plot is just sort of, it may have worked a lot better if Chris Evans actually starred. But I still think it's not necessary. They could have had just good chemistry. They didn't,
Yeah.
that didn't need to be an important part. You don't need every male and female um, star to be in a relationship because it's sold as a rom-com, but it's really not. There's just elements of rom-com in with
And then
a
they end
story.
up together at the end.
Yeah, and a tacked on like, ending. It's just
And like they drop
it's too
hints at it,
much.
like the flight to Louisiana from Florida. Like, okay, you're doing the romance, you're doing the wooing, you got the
But
meet
it's
cute
that's
at the
that's about
bar.
as much romance as I've seen it like, an action flick or something. It's just like
Yeah,
little moments of chemistry. It's not a romance movie
right.
at
And
all.
I think this movie confuses chemistry for romance because you can
Yeah.
have two characters that fit really well together with good performances. And I think what we get from Channing Tatum and Scarlett Johansson are, considering what they were given, good performances. I see something new from each of them, which I haven't from either of them in a long time. They give enjoyable, they provide enjoyable characters. But I think you're right, Ben, that the film sort of shoehorns them together because it calls itself a romantic comedy. So we've got to put these two lovebirds together. And it didn't need to
I will say I think Scarlett Johansson really works well. Channing Tatum seems a little out of place almost.
because it was
Like he
supposed to be
doesn't
Chris Evans.
well, it just doesn't feel like he knows that it's 1960 whatever.
His shirts do.
He Yeah, I don't know, maybe it's just the way he acts. The way he acts is not convincing as a 60s man.
No, he acts
Uh,
very 21st century.
yeah. And Scarlett Johansson's doing a great job acting like he was a
Her wig
60s.
is not, though. It was
What's wrong with
distracting.
her wig? I
It
thought the wig
was
was great.
just distracting. It changed too many times.
I thought the wig was great.
Didn't work for me.
Perfect 60s wig.
Oh, perfect 60s wig didn't work for me.
That's because you have a 21st century brain.
I'm not ashamed of that.
I like the wig. I like the hairstyle.
He likes
Channing
the
Tatum
wig.
also said that he didn't like the wig, so
Well, Channing Tatum and I are pretty much the same person when you start thinking about it, so it makes sense that we would agree on that.
yeah.
True.
Oh,
Yeah,
I have to say, there was one line that Channing Tatum said that I don't know why they didn't use a different take. It was like, "Who are you, man?" When
I
somebody
remember
came
that.
in, I can't remember how he said it, but it just seemed like so unnatural. I was like, "Why
Who are
you didn't have
you,
another take?"
man?
Yeah, it was like so unconvincing.
It
I feel
was,
like I remember that in the trailer too.
yeah.
Oh my god. Why did they use another take? It couldn't just be me that's saying like that's not a good take. You could do that line again. 5 seconds, but still. The fact that I remember it is not good.
No, drawing that piece out of a 2 hour and 12-minute movie.
Yeah, you don't want that.
But I feel like with, and I'm not about to compare this movie to some of the great space related, space centric movies of the last 30 years. That's not my intent here. But with movies like Apollo 13, The Martian, Interstellar, you have these
The
in the
right stuff.
climax.
The right stuff. Don't put in Interstellar. You should put
Okay,
in the
the
real
right stuff.
ones.
Okay. you've got these grand moments of catharsis in the climax where these movies make you feel all the emotions when the impossible is achieved. And I feel like if they hadn't done uh the faking the moon landing side plot that apparently was the center of the movie, that was the core element of the movie, even though it didn't show up until more than halfway through. If they had just focused on the PR element and then getting to the moon, there would have been that grand moment of catharsis, that grand realization that the impossible is that is it has happened. And instead, when they, oh, that's your guys up there, when they think that
Yeah.
they've ruined it with the
Well,
fake shot,
there's two like climaxes,
is
right?
no,
Because
like
they're
that
going
was
up,
clearly going for this huge climactic moment of emotion, and it fell flat. Like, that was the
but the,
crux of the movie, was that's your guys up there. That was the big moment. I felt
well,
nothing.
there were two moments, right, where instead of like the launch director, dealing with all this stuff, the camera's been sabotaged by what is his name, Mo Birkins, um,
Woody Harrelson.
yeah, Woody Harrelson, and the whole like timeline, countdown to try to get up the camera or whatever, rig it on the rocket. It's just like you've been talking about Apollo 1 this whole time, about the brave astronauts that risked their lives during this moment when it's like takeoff, and instead you got a bunch of guys like the camera's focused, the whole story's focus is on two random engineers who need to get a camera to the top. um and then yeah, it transitions to like you need to have this ridiculous plot where everyone's acting really well, and it's seamless, and then you realize that the black cat comes, and all that stuff. It's just really unrewarding, and it doesn't
Yeah.
fit with the theme that they kept establishing about all the sacrifice of the people and like the authenticity of all these people's heroics. I mean, I get it. It's just a kind of confused script, but I feel like you should
It
put
was
you know,
disjointed. I think is the best word to describe it. Max, what do you think?
my,
Yeah, I mean, there's just so much that like went wrong where they had to like go fix it at the last minute that it kind of detracted from Ben, like what you said, the memory of the Apollo 1 astronauts.
yeah,
Like the I feel like it would have worked better even if they had those issues, but you just saw them get wrapped up quicker. Like everything went on for way too long in those
yeah.
sequences. Like the dude running up in the elevator to the top of the shuttle was like 2 minutes. Like it could have been like we get the point. He's gonna get it onto the thing. We know how this is gonna end. Like let's get to the point here. Like that added to the runtime.
Going to the
Yeah.
electronics store, breaking the window,
Yeah,
going in
why
and
did we need that
then
whole
having
thing?
to not
I
only
mean,
that, going in and having to choose the right TV.
that was
Like,
possibly one of the most ridiculous things ever.
and then Scarlett Johansson's just like, I'm gonna sweet talk the cop, and then smash cut, police escort.
Like that's funny, but
It's
we
funny,
don't
but
need
like,
that.
yeah,
It's 10 minutes of the movie or whatever for no reason. It's just
Yeah.
there's no stakes. It's not, I mean, it's kind of funny. It just takes away, like, you screw with the flow of a movie. I mean, when you put in those random scenes that don't really add much to the overall story or any of the characters' plots or anything, you just you put a roadblock in, you know.
Yeah. It
It
almost would have been more effective if they just had those issues and resolved them quickly, just because it would have shown like how competent they were and like this is the whole point. We know that they make it. Like
yeah.
this is not a
I just
surprise. We
think
know they make it on this launch.
it's a
yeah.
useless point. I mean, why not just, I have no idea what this side plot is just silly. Like the faking the moon thing really hurt the movie. You should have
Yeah,
made
I
it
think
about the Apollo 11 mission and selling
agreed.
that.
Because once you bring in, and I love Jim Rash. I've loved Jim Rash since he was on Community 15 years ago. I think he's a wonderfully talented actor. Having him on this movie works. I think he's a good character to have involved, or he's a good actor to have involved in a project like Fly Me to the Moon. But to have him in that role where he's so clearly off to the side of the central elements of the film, to have him be so important in the third act, it just it's like a lot of other elements of this movie. It just didn't work for me. Again,
Yeah.
there's nothing wrong with his performance. Nothing wrong with what he was given as an actor from the
Well, no, but
screenplay and the direction.
he just sort of shows up and takes a lot of screen time at the end when we should be focusing on like the main characters.
And obviously, you knew he was going to come back because he was presented early on in the film.
Yeah.
And then it's like, oh, well, we need a director for this. I wonder who they're going to get. And then you get the joke about we should have gotten Kubrick. Oh, who's a big director in the 60s?
The other thing is, they spend all this time about like, oh, how we gotta turn this into the moon, and he's getting mad at his actors, and then you realize that like normally in these comedic, setups and stuff, something comes out of it, like you achieve something, but what they're achieving is nothing. They're not actually gonna fake the moon landing. So
And I think you brought up like not having actors or whatever. I think you set up a really funny premise when you bring in the actors to play Ray Romano's character and Channing Tatum's character.
oh
And
yeah, I
then
mean that
and then
that
you've
part's
got
fine.
these non-actors coming in as NASA astronauts, pretty boys, whatever, to be involved in the fake version of the moon landing. And they don't have any dialogue. You barely see their faces. They're not characters where you could have had a lot of fun with these two or three guys who are going to be the fake versions of our three main astronauts bumbling around on a movie set with Jim Rash. And that could have been a really fun way to do it. But instead,
I still
all of
think
the
that would be a
focus is pulled onto Jim Rash and the direction. And oh well, we got to get the dust to make it look like real moon rock. We got to get the sun position just right. Oh, our DP is the slowest in the business. Like, have if you're gonna go in this direction, have the fun it requires. You're doing a comedy.
yeah. I mean, I still think that would be a bad idea to spend any time on this because
I'm just
you're
saying, if
putting
that's
it
the
in.
direction you were going, lean into it because you presented earlier on with the fake versions of
Well,
Ray Romano and Channing Tatum.
yeah, but regardless, I feel like it would still kind of suck. I mean, it's kind of funny to see the Secret Service guys or whatever bumbling around.
Is that who they
I
were?
don't, I don't, I think you'd have to spend too much time like developing those characters, at least 5 minutes, ten
And cut
minutes.
out all the stuff with the engineers.
No, no, that's the
No, no,
part
no, no,
that
no.
actually.
Just not the engineers doing their jobs. The engineers bumbling around an electronics store after breaking in. The engineers
Oh,
trying to get with
well,
Scarlett Johansson's
I'd get rid
assistant.
of that too. I think I just want to get rid of about the entire last third of the movie and do a different story because I don't think that the movie set idea really works for this. I think it's a horrible idea. Um, it just kills, like, if you're going to start the movie with these two people about their actual real jobs, and then you have like this entire subplot about people faking something that's not going to be shown.
It's not even a
It's just a
subplot.
use.
It hijacks the movie.
Yeah.
It's what the movie
Yeah, no.
becomes about
You know,
65% of the way in.
so regardless of how well you could do it, I mean, you could make something funny, but it still wouldn't work if you get what I mean. It doesn't work for the
I
movie.
think one of the best descriptions, and I forget if I saw this on Twitter or Letterboxd or somewhere, one of the best descriptions of this movie before it even came out was this feels like it would be a fake in-universe movie in some other movie. Like you'd see the characters in a romantic comedy going on a date to a movie theater. Oh, Channing Tatum and Scarlett Johansson in Fly Me to the Moon.
This
I
is
mean,
And
like
that's this
Argyle
movie
and Argyle.
yeah, you could
with
say that
Argyle and
about a
Argyle.
lot of movies, though.
Yeah.
Like this movie at times didn't really feel real. Like,
Well, it's not real, actually. It's a fictional movie.
yes, and Ben, I'm so glad that this movie did not say based on a true story or based on real events,
I would have shut up the screen.
because
I would have burned it. I would have blown it up.
that would have been this entire episode was just another edition of Ben Green talks about based on a true story.
Yeah, I am glad. It's such a terrible thing. Just just stop it. Stop.
Making that joke just now just almost made you as mad as the movie would have.
Yeah, well, it just reminds me. It brings up bad memories. Not all based on true story movies are bad, but
Is
there are
Argyle based on a true
egregious.
story?
Oh God, I don't think so.
This was the better of the two Apple TV movies that we've seen, though.
What
Of
was
the
the other
three,
one?
this I don't know. Was
Is this
Napoleon
one?
better than this? Yeah, it was.
This
Actually,
I
yeah.
would I would
But Argyle was the third. So
Napoleon goes all the way in. It commits to its bit, and it has some really cool battle sequences.
that's true. Yeah,
visually
it's
speaking,
that
Napoleon
that's
was
the
way
best
better.
one. Then this one, and then Argyle. Argyle was terrible.
Fly Me to the Moon just
I
it doesn't
mean,
complete its mission.
the best Apple original movie we've done was Killers of the Flower Moon.
Oh yeah, that was one.
Oh
But yeah,
yeah, I forgot that was Apple.
And
yeah,
then
they did a few.
probably Napoleon, then this, and then Argyle.
Yeah. Then we also did
Argyle was
a
such a
Chris.
disappointment. I wanted it to be so much better.
We did Ghosted, didn't we?
No, Max, you and I just watched that and
Oh,
talked about how dog shit it
okay.
was.
It's just it was
Yeah, my
terrible.
Ben, have
parents
you
watched
seen it?
that. I've never seen it.
It's so bad.
I
You don't
kept
need to.
hearing how bad it was, and I'm like, I'm not gonna deal with
Like
that.
you would
You,
want Chris Evans and Ana de Armas to have some level of chemistry after Knives Out, and they don't at all. It's so
yeah,
bad.
it's really bad.
You
Nice.
have to watch it.
I really don't.
Yeah, this movie, just getting back to Fly Me to the Moon, Ray Romano is a real bright spot.
Yeah, he's
He,
good. I could
he
have
was an
used more of him.
absolute delight every time he was on screen. He was the funniest one up there. I wanted more of his character because
Yeah,
they gave us little nuggets of who this guy is, and we're sort of piecing him together the whole time, but he's barely there.
Yeah, he's sort of
He's
just
not
a.
as much screen time as the two 20 something engineers that are there,
No, he has less screen time than them for sure.
which is disappointing.
Well, maybe they couldn't pay for him.
You're
They
saving
couldn't pay
money
for
by
more
going to
than five
Channing Tatum
minutes.
instead of Chris Evans. Use your savings to pay for Ray Romano.
no, those all went to Scarlett Johansson
Yeah.
She was a producer on this.
or Colin Jost.
I Dude, when Colin Jost showed up in this movie, I damn near got up and left.
No, that's funny. It was 5 seconds. It had no impact on the movie. It was funny.
Yeah.
Who
I
cares?
The
I
bro
actually thought
cannot
it was
act.
kind of funny. No, but
It was
the one thing that
too
I did,
jarring.
the one thing that it really hurt was like they're saying all this funny stuff. Like I love the setup. It's like, yeah, they want to put this on the moon. And he's like, this is real pictures, future pictures. It's so like stiff. I don't know.
Was he
Why can't
playing
he
it
act?
straight?
He's been on SNL. I guess he does the Weekend Report or whatever. That's his
He
issue.
does update. He's a head writer. He does
Yeah.
update.
He
He
doesn't need
doesn't
to
do the
act.
sketches.
Oh, but yeah, no, you can't. You can't. That man cannot act.
This was a better performance than the Chloe Grace Moretz Tom and Jerry movie that Colin Jost was heavily featured in.
I don't
I
want to
didn't
know
It was
what
a
see
that
that.
is.
it was a COVID movie. Don't bother watching it. It
I won't.
was like a
But
2021 horrible movie.
Okay.
Live action animated.
Yeah, that's what I was afraid of.
Just bad. I guess that sequence was okay. I
It
did have a
wasn't
good laugh at
terrible.
future pictures. Now, these are just mock-ups. It was funny.
Renderings of the future. Future pictures?
Now, would I go so far as to say going out and trying to convince all of these senators and lawmakers to vote yes on funding for NASA? Would I compare that to the same exact sequence in Steven Spielberg's Lincoln? Yes,
no.
I would.
What?
In Lincoln, when they go out and try to get all of the lawmakers to agree to vote
Well,
for
hold on.
something.
Okay, well, one of them is decidedly more important than the other one. One is funding for a public space program. The other one was for the
I'm making a deliberately terrible false equivalency.
okay.
Come on.
I also
Come
feel
on. I
like
would never.
that was like the entire movie too. They spend like 5 minutes on the senators, and then he goes over and they have that ridiculous conversation with the lawmaker about God or whatever.
Oh, with Scarlett Johansson putting on the third different accent she does in this movie.
Yeah. Oh, now I was born in Louisiana. My mama used to say Texas was the mother of Louisiana.
That was so crazy.
Ben, that's one of
But
my
yeah,
favorite things you've ever done on this podcast.
it was entertaining.
Yeah.
Um,
So just so we're clear, one was for NASA, the other one was for the 13th Amendment.
Yes, I
One of them
I
is more
know.
important.
I was
and it's NASA. Many
doing
people don't
something
acknowledge
deliberately
this.
terrible. I knew how stupid I was sounding when I said it. I was being sarcastic.
I just wanted to make sure that we're all on the same page that
Yeah, we are all on the same page.
okay.
I just love at the dinner table when the guy's like, now I don't know if you know this, but we are in a war against communism. Or was it a war for God or something? There are people
I
that
don't remember. I kind of zoned out in that scene.
are waging war against God out there. It's just a ridiculous like scene.
It was a
It is,
caricature.
yeah,
All three of the senators that they talked to were caricatures.
yeah.
And two of them were just caricatures of the South.
Oh yeah, and then you also have him like getting mad and has no
Two of them were the South,
consequences.
and the third one was Colin Jost.
Yeah, I don't know.
That's lawmakers in the late 60s for you.
They should have stuck with the original I don't want to say the original plot, but what it had going in the beginning. Talking about the Apollo mission, the engineering, managing that.
Yeah, if you
Why
can
in the
make
world does the launch director of Apollo 11 actually give a shit whether the camera works at that point? I know he sort of cares, but come on, you're the launch director. He was
right,
responsible for
flight
three men's
director,
death. That is not on his mind.
flight director has authority over the camera.
Huh?
Let the camera and the broadcast be the problem with the flight director, not the launch director.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you could make, and it's been done before, obviously, but I think you could make a very compelling comedy about the Apollo 11 mission. And I think that exists somewhere in this movie. They just abandoned it and went for the conspiracy theory adaptation that they promised that they would make.
Yeah,
And I
super
think that's
weird.
disappointing.
Yeah, they should have.
I didn't expect a whole lot from this movie.
So
I,
Jason
I,
Bateman left the picture. He was going to direct, and he left due to creative differences. So I wonder if he saw the same
he
issues.
probably did. And I think for that reason, we can name him an honorary friend of the pod.
This is a perfect Greg Berlanti movie, though. It like it's very analogous to a CW show.
Kind of.
Perfect, perfect. Like they have an interesting plot going on, and then all of a sudden, there's like a romance nonsense plot. There's like a drama side plot just shoehorned in.
Yeah,
It
like everything
happens
with
everything he does.
the talk show that Channing Tatum goes on,
Yeah,
like that was the most dramatic the movie ever got.
and it has no consequences,
And it
none
has no
whatsoever.
consequences whatsoever.
Nobody even bats an eye.
No, they just move on.
No,
Oh,
they're
well,
just like, oh shoot, we lost the senator. Let's go
yeah,
get another one in 5 minutes.
and they do. No stakes. The stakes are literally going to the moon, and yet
Yeah,
they make that somehow have no stakes.
and I think I will. My final point will be that is an issue when everybody knows that we did get to the moon. When you know the ending, they're not going to screw around with that. You need to actually have like real stakes that maybe something can happen. Oh, do they actually need to work for another senator? And don't solve the issue so fast. What's the point in having an issue in a movie if it just gets resolved immediately?
Yeah.
You want the tension.
You want the tension. You want that grand moment of catharsis.
Hmm.
You want the movie to make you feel something. I
You
think is the
want to
bottom
be
line.
on the edge of your seat.
Especially for a movie about freaking space, man.
Well, like when I watch The Right Stuff and Apollo 13, even The Martian has some degree, but those other ones are real, like real stories. So even though I
Yeah.
know what's going to happen, it's still amazing because you know all the other stories of guys that had lost their lives doing
Yeah.
similar things. And even going back to like the Challenger incident, and people still go up and do it. It's a safer thing now, but I mean it's still a pretty crazy thing to do.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And I will say if anybody has not watched the Raid stuff, I would immediately watch that. It really gets you into the minds of the pilots, and the people that were responsible for getting up to the moon, getting into space, and all of that. But they're real mavericks. Like Chuck Yeager, he's stars or somebody plays him in the movie. Uh, I mean, it's a great movie. I highly recommend that, at least over this.
Well, speaking of Mavericks, talking about a movie starring one of the stars of Top Gun Maverick next week. He's playing a tornado wrangler. We're going to see Glenn Powell in Twisters. I've got my IMAX ticket. I am uber excited to see it. Should be one whole heck of a lot of fun. In the meantime, form your own opinion about Fly Me to the Moon. Let us know what you think about the plot in the first half of the movie versus the plot in the second half of the movie.
You see the movie, but if you haven't seen the right stuff, I'd watch that first.
Prioritize. All right, we will see you next week for Twisters. In the meantime, happy watching. We'll see you next week. Bye.
Good night.
Yeah.